As students, we're told over and over by our teachers and possibly our parents to slow down, to practice more slowly, especially for pitch. However, without a method, without a stepwise method and specific goals, it's not going to be that effective to simply play things slowly and then just speed them up. It's better than just playing them fast over and over. But I'm going to go over a little bit more of a detailed process for how to pull a passage of music apart and piece it back together one step at a time for pitch. Before we get started, a couple things I want to mention. Very important. Tune your cello really well. Use an electronic tuner if you have to. All 4 strings are important that they're in tune, even if you're not using the bottom 2 strings, let's say. In this case, I'm not, the example, but it's important that they're in tune because it's giving me feedback as to whether or not the notes that I'm playing on the higher strings are in tune. For example, if I'm playing a G on the D string, I'm listening to the sympathetic vibrations of open G and C to let me know whether or not that note's in the slot. It's almost as though I'm using an octave double stop to tune something with an open string. But I'm just playing on the one string. I'm still hearing the other strings. So tune your cello. Second, don't use vibrato at all. If you're practicing for pitch, you can't use vibrato. It's the last thing you add in once you get something in tune. I've even had students come to me where they can't stop using vibrato. I say slow it down, practice it for pitch, and get the vibrato out of there, and it starts creeping in about 3 notes into the practicing during the lesson. So that's kind of an indicator to me that that student has never practiced correctly for pitch. So again, don't vibrate. Third, the kind of sound that you're using, the sound quality, is also very important for getting a clear pitch. You want to use a slow bow near the bridge. It's also important that the string is really down in the left hand, very cleanly down against the fingerboard. So we're looking for a very bell-like or laser-like clear cutting sound here. When I'm playing with this kind of sound, I can hear the slightest variations in the position of my finger. It kind of magnifies anything that I'm doing, and that's like really like getting a magnifying glass on the center of the pitch of that note. If I'm using a dusty sound quality with a bunch of bow speed and the string's not down, I can't really hear what's happening. There's just a lot of noise in that sound, and I don't even hear the changes in my finger. It all just kind of sounds the same, so I can't really zero in on the center of the pitch. So those 3 things are important. Tune your cello, don't use vibrato, play near the bridge with a very focused sound quality. So let's get into the passage in question. This is Etude number 1 from Deoch, Book 2. Here's the first phrase that we're dealing with. So let's move to step 1, separate bows. I'm really, in this step, the idea is that I'm looking at each note as an evaluation of the pitch. And I'm only moving to the next note when I'm convinced the note that I'm playing is as in tune as I can get it. So that means I'm not playing in rhythm, I'm not playing the written bowings. It's almost as though somebody's holding up a flashcard and telling me E natural. And then they're listening and saying, okay, that's good enough. F natural. Okay, I'm going to get that note in tune. Okay, now you can move on. So here's what that looks like. Step 1, separate bows. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 1 took 3 bows on that note because I wasn't sure it was in tune yet. Another thing we're thinking about here, because we're playing separate bows, every shift will have a bow change. I want to shift on the old bow. Here's what I mean by that. Versus the new bow, which looks like this. So old bow shifts. Not only that, I can isolate the shifts and practice them in slurs. Here's what that looks like. Now I'm going to go back to a separate bow for this shift. Also not a bad idea to even reverse the bowing. Another concept that's very important, I want to be aware of all the notes I'm playing in any given hand position, especially as I'm shifting from one note to the next. I'm not simply playing the G and the E with my pinky. I'm thinking about the 3 notes I'm playing in this hand position and the 3 notes I'm playing in this hand position. This is E, F, and G in 4th position. This is C, D, and E in 2nd position. This hand position is closed. This hand position is open. So when I make my shift, I need to make sure that I'm not just shifting my pinky from one note to the next, but I'm also opening up my hand position and I'm hitting my targets with my 2nd and 1st finger that were a half step apart. They will now be a whole step apart. So I actually want to learn that shift, taking into account both hand positions. I can even practice this shift incorporating all the notes of the both hand positions. That way I'm checking to see if I made the right adjustment. Not only hearing that I made the shift correctly and accurately, but that I also was right about my guess about how far to open up my hand when I change hand positions. Step 2. Still no rhythm. We're still moving from note to note based on how in tune the note is. We only move off the note when it's in tune. We're going to add the bowing. Step 2 is the bowing step. Here's what this looks like. Again, no rhythm really. As I get better at this step, I might start edging towards playing the rhythm to see if I can sort of start to approximate which notes are longer and shorter. And I'm also going to start looking at the distribution of my bow as I do this. So I'm now moving towards step 3, which will be putting a click on and playing in rhythm. But I'm still allowing myself time to tune notes as I go. As I get better, it might sound something like this. I'm close to playing in rhythm at that point. Once I feel like I'm kind of getting close and I can still keep the pitch where I want it, I'm going to pick a slow click speed. I don't want huge jumps in speed. That was quite slow what I was just playing. If I threw on, for example, 60 to the quarter note, that would be a radical shift in tempo here. That would be much faster all of a sudden. probably be too big of a jump to maintain the quality of my pitch. So rather than 60 to the quarter note, this is in 4/4, I'm going to say 80 to the eighth note, which would be like 40 to the quarter note, basically. So this is step 3, rhythm. Another point, you'll notice I'm not doing any phrasing. I'm playing in a very opaque manner. I'm just trying to maintain this clarity of sound through this. And really the goal is to get to this stage. I'm just playing really loud and clear. The first demonstration I gave of this passage, I used vibrato and it might have done a little phrasing. That's our final step. Maybe call it step 4, is adding phrasing and vibrato. But I went through these steps really quickly. It's possible you'd be on one step for a whole day, or even 2 days. You might even get up to step 2 or 3 with a passage, or a whole etude, and then the next time you sit down and practice, you start over again at step 1, and zero in even closer on really, really accurate pitch. So, real quick recap. Step 1 is the separate bows step. No vibrato, and we only move to the next note when we're satisfied with the pitch. Step 2, we add the bowing but not the rhythm. During step 2, we start to approximate the rhythm once we get confident. Step 3, put the metronome on at a slow click and speed it up a few notches at a time. Final thing is adding in vibrato and phrasing. That's kind of another discussion about how to add the vibrato in. It does, it can change your hand position and things like that. Depending on the speed of your ultimate speed, that's another choice to make about whether or not eighth notes will get vibrato. If this is really fast, you really can't vibrate on the eighth notes once you play it fast enough. It's kind of too fast to vibrate the eighth notes. If you're playing it slower, you may need to vibrate the eighth notes. So that's kind of another discussion about what speed is appropriate to add vibrato. But hopefully that's helpful, this 3-step process about how to break something down and put it back together again for your pitch practice.